It always feels good to actually hit pretty much every single thing on the banners. Hey, Plumeria, 4-star Ash, and Bernie just like at the very end. Granted, none of them have extremely good IVs in general. Sure, Plumeria has that plus attack but minus speed. Ash has the exact opposite with plus speed minus attack, and Bernie is probably the lowest end with a plus HP minus defense IV spread. I won't say that that's horrid. At least I got catalog. I also managed to get catalog for a 4-star special with a plus attack minus resolu. And then of course the harmonic is the spark. So I got the two focus 5 stars. I did manage to skip out on on off focus, so no chance for a focus charge for me. A 4-star special and a demote. So now onto the actual collab portion of this one. So this time I'm due for the banner name. It's Laws of War. So remember, for every single one of these banners, names of units, the skills, and the units that have them are tentative. I'm making them up as I go, so realistically, I don't personally know if they would actually stick. In part because of the actual space requirements. But another thing to remember is that any artwork that I'm using, whether it be from MiHoYo's characters or the cipher cards that desperately need more chances to actually appear, I don't own these. And the big reason that I don't try using my own art is I have pretty much zero talent in art. So, yes, if you are bothered by the fact that I'm using cipher cards, I apologize beyond that, but don't forget that these are just ideas. I like the image used, therefore I use it. That's pretty much what I think of. So let's start with the Ascended Hero. We have the Law All Might Yan Fei. So once again, it's not getting easier or harder to choose actual unit choices. I did, of course, choose a 4-star for the starting point of the fire. So she has on basic levels is 18 HP with 50% growth, 10 attack base with 70% growth. She has 10 speed with a 65% growth. 4 defense, of course, is going to be her lower end with a 35% growth. And then her best is, of course, going to be that 10 resistance with an 80% growth. So she ends up with basic stats of 40. Her weapon gives her another 14, so that's 40, 38, 19, and 45. For the Banes, we have attack and defense. For her boons, we have speed and res. So starting off, we of course have the attack res finish and attack res oath force. So she's going to be able to warp to help any in need of law counsel. For her special is Holy Flames as a cooldown count of 4. This is once again one of those cases where I decided to make it a dual requirement of Soul and Iceberg. So Iceberg offers that boost damage by 50% of units res, and Soul gives that 50% of total damage dealt is recovered. This is essentially a magic version of Aether, albeit with a slightly lower cooldown count. Now, if you're wondering why Holy Flame and not something like Holy Ice, it's because it's very hard to actively translate Iceberg into some kind of flame. I mean, Iceberg reflects does really good reflecting light. Light creates flame, therefore Holy Flame. If that's the best explanation I can probably give for her PRF-B skill, Law of Steel. Any foes with a range of equal to 1 can't move through spaces within 2 spaces of units unless unit starts the turn at that space. And then, of course, if foe initiates combat, reduces damage from foes' attacks by 40%. So the first part of this is a little bit hard to understand. I'll admit that when I created it, it was actually a weird way of saying it. Basically, what it's saying is that any melee combat unit, so dragons, beasts, sword, axe, lance, unless they start up their position at the indirect range, they can't actually attack her. So basically, if something's entering into the a range at that two spaces away, they can't actually move past that until they actively have a turn where they start it. And then her Black Agate Seal at the start of turn, if unit's HP is 25% or greater, grants Warp Stop to unit until end of turn and inflicts False Start on foes within 5 spaces of unit. At the start of turn, if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants Attack Res plus X, where X is equal to the 50% of total bonuses on any ally, and that's totaling all allies, not just one ally, and grants cooldown count +1 per attack. Warp Stop is very similar to Warp Bubble, but if foe stops on a space 2 spaces away from unit by warping, that unit's turn ends. So if something is to attempt to warp to her location to attempt to kill her with Deadeye, that unit no longer has a turn. The other thing too is I ended up giving her false start, which so far that I know of is only on Elamine, which is interesting because we have a lot of stat bonuses that actively don't have anything but a soul source. So for what it is, no warping to attack her, and then no closing in to attack her without having an extra without taking an extra turn to do so. This is definitely one of the weirder units that I've actually ended up trying to make. Especially since Warp Stop is only going to be used really good towards AI units, because once you're facing an opponent, depending on how you're facing an opponent, they may have the Fey Pass restart turn, in which case they'd ignore what the Warp Stop does. But it basically means that Yanfei is gonna you can't attack her on the first turn, stopping pretty much anything in its path, as the Law Council can do. She knows the laws of war and knows how to use them perfectly. Next up is the Conversant Council Muriel. Now, this is one of those cases where, if you notice in the picture, it actually is going beyond the actual space, and that's possibly because I went over the actual number of letters you can put into it. But of course, Muriel is going to be a character that uses a humongous amount of actual syllables in her words, of course. So Muriel is a colorless tome flyer with a basic stat point of 19 HP, 45% growth, 9 attack, 70% growth, 10 speed, 70% growth again, 3 defense, 35% growth, and then 9 resistance with a 75% growth. She only has the one stat as a super boon with a resistance starting at 42. She has neutral attack at 53. Her HP at 38, speed at 40, and defense at 18 are all super banes, making her a very, very hard unit to actively keep a bonus total. Granted, having that resistance may not be the best thing to do due to her erudite law book. So, accelerates special cooldown count, and I did actually realize that Flare also is a infantry lock skill, so this one probably would be changed to something that is usable for flyers. But at the start of turn, if unit is within 3 spaces of an ally with greater attack, speed, or resistance, grants bonus to unit based on what stat is greater. If an ally's attack is greater than unit's attack, grants attack +7 and treachery. If it's speed, grants speed +7 and desperation. And then if it's res, grants res +7 and bonus doubler. So she also has 2 new skills, speed res rain snap, so more movement, And then I added Remote Swift. So if unit initiates combat, grants speed +7, res +10 during combat, and reduces damage from foes' first attack during combat by 30%. So Remote Swift is simply Swift Impact, but a remote version of it. Flare, I do think I remember this being locked specifically to infantry units. I think someone mentioned that. If so, then this technically isn't usable, but it might be like a different name with the same kind of effect that it offers. But basically, you're going to be offering Treachery. So Treachery will offer bonuses to damage equal to your stat bonuses. Desperation, so automatic dual follow-up attack after first attack. And then, of course, bonus doubler, which just bonuses all of what you're gaining. So each one is a possible plus 14 with bonus doubler. Speed gives another 7, so that's 21. Res gets 10, so that's 24 points of res, meaning that she can be a very dangerous unit in the air. She also has an open slot for B, which means that it's easy to give her a Far Trace or maybe Brash Assault 4. Once again, I did do this one as the empty slot, as in one slot is specifically empty for the reason of being the lesser 5-star of the actual banner. Now onto the demote. We have the ruling novice Laurent. So Laurent is a odd exception to my rule for these, where I only do units that are already in the game, and he just felt like a good addition to go along with his mother. So I hope not to do this again. But I also figured that this would be a very good way to put him into the game. So Laurent is a green tome cav with the 17 base HP, 50% growth, 9 attack, 65% growth, 10 speed, 65% growth, 5 defense with a 40% growth, and 6 resistance with a 60% growth, leading to 39, 49, 43, 17, and 37, with HP and defense being the super boons and resistance being his super bane. So unfortunately, nothing in terms of attack and speed is touched for this unit. Also, this because he is a cav, that means that his stats never go beyond 50. But he comes with Rally Attack Res Plus. His demote skill ends up being the Speed Res Far Trace 3, which means that he's actually a good fodder for his mother. He also comes with a brand new skill, Swift Flow. So this is the Speed Res version of Still Water, Solid Ground. Take your pick. Grants Speed Res +5, but inflicts defense -5. So don't forget that that's in addition. So that means that his defense is actually 22, his speed is actually 38, and his res is actually 32. So that means that he is actually a little bit. His stats are a little bit altered. For his weapon, we have the Lawful Windfall Plus as a if unit initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants speed res +5 and neutralizes penalties to speed and res during combat. Once again, this is not a necessarily good tome. All it is just a buff to speed and res, and then you're just nullifying your own penalties. We've seen this with Upfront Blade, pretty much every upfront weapon. So this is essentially just the speed and res version of that. Hopefully this idea means that I will eventually create Swift Flow 4, so that means speed res +5 and inflicts, but the defense doesn't change. Hopefully that becomes an actual realization that I can attempt to do. But for now, this is what is currently being able to offered. Now, don't forget that both Swift Flow and that Rally Attack Res Plus are going to be 5-star only skills for him. So he is Definitely able to handle his own. He's not necessarily the highest in everything. His speed is definitely a good stat at standing at 43, which means that he is probably in some of the upper echelons of that stat. He's not super fast. He's not super slow either, which is a good thing. And now on to the rearmed hero. Our rearmed hero, the Hellflame Justice Arvis. Once again, beautiful art by Sachiko Wada. Hopefully, we can actually get something like this for Arvis's next alt. So, if you've noticed, once again, I have hit pretty much everyone that does not have alts. Arvis is one of those units that has gone the entirety of the game with no alt. And as you notice, pretty much every skill he has is brand new. First off, we have the Speed Res Far Save as a armor unit. Ooh, whoops, forgot one thing. His stats. So he does start with a very low HP of 18 with 45% growth. Attack is 11 with 70% growth. Speed is 12 with 75. Defense is 5 with 40. And then resistance is 9 with 70%. So that equals a 37, 55, 45, 22, and 39, with attack, speed, defense being all super boons. The only super bane is going to be HP. So that means that he's not very. He is a certain level of tanky, but he does not have a huge amount of HP to survive a lot. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and do the speed res fart save, something that we have yet to see, either a speed res or speed defense. So I'd be very interested in seeing what they can do with speed res, speed defense in terms of save skills. For his PRF B skill, the Prayer Bracelet, so an upgrade on his Prayer Ring. So at the start of both players' turns, if unit's HP is less than or equal to 50%, the unit recovers 15 HP and gets attack res plus 9 for that turn. So this is a soul upgrade off of his original Prayer Ring, the one that he comes with in his Grand Hero Battle form. In that one, it's just an every turn renewal. In this case, it's a conditional renewal, but it also buffs him. Now onto his A skill, the Warding Dual Strike. This one requires both Death Blow 3 and Warding Breath. A very odd choice. I did actually take a look to see if there was the Warding Stance 3, but unfortunately I didn't see enough units to make it that were available for it. And I just decided another source of Warding Breath would be nice, since we only have the one on Legendary Ike. If unit initiates combat, grants attack plus 8 and cooldown charge plus 1 to unit during combat. If foe initiates combat, grants a res plus 8 and reduces damage from foes' attacks by 25% of unit's res. So this is a dual phase skill, as noted by the fact that it uses both a player phase and an enemy phase skill. In this case, it's the just straight up Death Blow 4 and a bonus to your cooldown charge. If you're getting attacked, it's basically the Warding Stance 4 with a reduction in damage. Now onto his special, which is Hellfire, base of cooldown count of 3 with a base of Iceberg. Once again, it was either use Iceberg to go along with the res or Bonfire to go along the fire theme, and that's really it. Boost damage by 40% of units res, and if foe has any stat penalties, boost damage by 150% of the total of those penalties. So for example, if foe has attack res minus 6, you would boost the damage by 18, each one of those being minus 9 points, so an 18 points bonus. That's a lot of damage. Like, even we have Blue Flame, which gets a buff of 15 just by being adjacent, off of the 10 that it originally would do. So 8 having just damage buff through what he can do through penalties makes him incredibly dangerous, especially with his Arcane Foul Flame. So once again, we have accelerated special cooldown. At the start of turn, if unit's HP is 25% or greater, grants dominance to unit until end of turn. And if there's a foe within 5 spaces of unit, inflicts attack speed res -7 and foe penalty doubler to the closest foe and any foes within 2 spaces of foe until end of foe's turn. So both players' turns, they're going to have that massive debuff. They're going to have an additional doubling of that, and you're also going to get dominance for your turn. At the start, and then at the start of combat, if Poe has a penalty, unit performs a guaranteed follow-up attack. So this is again a penalty for stats, not necessarily penalty for just a stat penalty. But again, this could be the case for what it is. So we have, for the 5 effects that the Valflame offers, is cooldown count -1, dominance to unit, attack speed res -7, foe penalty doubler to anything, and guaranteed follow-up attack. So I believe that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skills that are, of course, in the Arcane Tome. Now, once again, this is a very weird tome because it's a very specific type of tome. It's better to be put on something that has the ability to inflict massive amounts of penalties to gain that guaranteed follow-up attack. But also the best part is that it's relatively easy to get a lot of his skills. For example, the Valflame would start out with the flames, the Bolganone. Hellfire has Iceberg, so that would be 2. And then for the Warding Dual Strike, Deathblow 3 is easily comes off of a bunch of units. Warding Breath is very hard to come by, but once again, you can just get Warding Breath and Warding Dual Strike. So that's the 4. If you really need the SR far save and you already have the Warding Breath on a unit, then by all means, far save, Dual Strike. Unfortunately, I could not really come up with a good unit for the GHB for this kind of case. There was really nothing in Yanfei's story from what I tried reading that made sense to add as the GHB, nor did I think of any heroes unit that could actively be a good choice. So, sorry, no GHB unit this time. Once again, as always, thank you very much for watching. Thoughts on whatever I create are very welcome in the comments, as well as if you have any series or a character or series that you want me to try and make, leave that in the comments as well. I currently have 2 sets that are going to be next up, as well as some other content for my summons. But for now, those will be first. But after that, I am open to a lot of different choices. I'm more than happy to take a look at Honkai Third Impact, Star Rail, Dragalia Lost sounds very interesting for me, especially since Dragalia Lost is no longer being updated. It stopped the service, so that game is actively open for heroes to try and swoop in and take whatever they need from them. But I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.